How is everyone? Wonderful. Good to see you. Feels good. I think maybe we're waiting for one or two more. You're good. Here's a question for you. Do you ever cultivate a contemplation around the purpose of life? Asking the question why. I'm starting our meditation talk about that because, along with a few other themes, potentially this is one of the strongest ones that come up within the inner workings of someone's mind. Whether or not people express it outwardly in a forward way is one thing, but always people are expressing it in all ways constantly. It comes through the way that we speak, the way that we sit, what we decide to eat, what we do not decide to eat, what we decide to do that day or not do that day, do that week or not do that week, do that month or not do that month. It really molds and shapes our entire existence and the experiences that we have within that. And I don't believe that you should really take what I'm saying for face value with it, because it's quite a large concept. But I believe that you should analyze it for yourself and see whether or not there's any validity to it. And if there is an element of truth that you start to cultivate within your own contemplation of it, that either directly or indirectly we are actually engaging on a continuous basis with this question and pull it through all aspects of our experience within life, then it becomes worthwhile to start to work backwards from that place. So through the development of a contemplation of the purpose, the meaning of life, and why we do it, we begin to develop a way of being within that. Not specific to anyone else. So within this exercising contemplation, we do not hold anyone else accountable. I'm just talking about the individual. And we start to develop a way of being that aligns with that meaning, that purpose. But begin to hold ourselves accountable on a very high level. So no longer is there any excuse or reason that can be acceptable in the way of sidestepping this very linear trajectory that you're cultivating for yourself. And I use the word linear literally, because we work with short stints of time. Even though time is eternal and it stretches in an event from birth to death, we have spurts of awareness that we can set on a literal linear track. And how that manifests is in the form of our habit. And the habit that we form encompasses our thought pattern, our emotion, our language. So everything exists within the habit of the particular creature that you are. Now, this is a really concise way of maturing your meditation practice. Because what begins to occur, and we've been exploring this concept throughout the last few weeks, is that you're dealing directly with the aspects or parts of your habitual activity which is creating disturbances within one's mind. And as we begin to dissolve that just through discernment, decision making, we enter into our meditation practice with a calmer, more tranquil, serene mind. So immediately we're actually creating a head start for our meditation practice. But now the cultivation of these sensations that are in support of your deeper meaning, the purpose of why you're here, is able to be taken from your meditation and applied to the moments of your day as they're manifesting, and will hone the ability to cultivate a new habitual pattern that is more conducive for this linear approach. Now, what comes up next is either strong or subtle fears. And the subtlety of the fear and how it manifests can be in the sensations of missing out. So if you have a habitual way of thinking about that person or about that thing or about that activity, but we've now discerned, we've realized that it's no longer conducive. But as we make that decision, there is a tiny little pull that is afraid that we're going to miss out on something if we don't go down that road. Do you know what I'm saying? But that exact same sensation grows quite large and begins to influence the strength of our discernment when we come to bigger pieces of this purpose or reason for being here. So it's one thing to visualize it, to daydream about it, to think on it, but it's another thing altogether to act in accordance, in a sense, in alignment to that. So if it's possible for us to cultivate a contemplation of what creates the meaning out of life and then work backwards from there, becomes incredibly effective at soothing the fear. And I'm not necessarily even talking about large concepts worth of fear. I mean the simplicity of it. So you've decided that meditation is important and you want to take it on, but you're afraid that you might miss something on that episode that comes on exactly the time that you decided to do your meditation. But it's really like that. Or that conversation that you would have on the phone with so-and-so. And it's been around for ages, the mechanism which creates fear within one's human experience. So it's not new to us, it's actually a really old friend. So then, how to build momentum within that which I'm talking about is to lean on the concept of the moment. So this experience that we're having right now, as it exists now. And holding it very specifically within your meditation practice. So you're not holding or looking so tightly that it becomes hard. It's actually very soft. So you are allowing the moment to have its eternal birthright. So it's a part of eternity, just like a drop in the ocean. But you're able to experience just that moment for what it is, as a singular connected to the collective. And if we can hone that skill within our meditation practice, keeping the eyes closed, we begin to feel this purity and innocence that exists within the experience that you're having. And that purity, the innocence that occurs within the moment, doesn't ever go away. The innocence and the purity actually follows into every other moment that exists, no matter what it is, and that's on the extreme level, no matter what it is. So the sweetness of a cultivating meditation practice is that you're honing the instrument, which is your body, your breath, and your mind, to gravitate around that innocence within the moment. So that then what begins to resonate out of the vessel, out of your body, is exactly that subtlety of vibration. And the more times we visit it, the stronger it gets, just like our discernment, just like our habit. So now it's up to us to identify with this concept that I'm talking about, and then translate it into your own direct experience. So even me talking about it, it's one part to say, this is a really expanded concept and I'm kind of grasping it, or I'm really grasping it, but then can we take it to the next stage and now find the moment right here, right now, and see, well, what does that feel like, just as it is? And accept the fact that this is what it is. So now this is how we begin to gain momentum within a meditation practice, is we accept that what we are feeling and what we are experiencing is exactly that. But we see it on the eternal, on its eternal ability. So no matter what it is that you have in front of you, it has room to move. It has room to transform itself. Any questions so far? And you can always just interject as a question, because I really want to make sure that you guys understand what I'm saying.
Would you be able to compare that kind of linear thread and that force that is working its way through the habits and patterns as kind of like a conscience concept as well?
Conscience?
Mm-hmm.
Like your conscience?
Yeah.
Yeah. In a way, that that aspect of you that is always whispering the correct instruction, and only we listen to it sometimes. And it falls into that often playful category of fear. So if I listen to this, then my life's going to be really boring. But in an incredibly linear and intelligent way, it's putting you dead center on your path that's going to hit the bullseye, so to speak.
The other way that I was thinking about those habits and patterns recently is that, like, they're all good kind of in their own way. They all have their time and their place, and they're relevant in their own time and place, but and they're really like living and intelligent too, and part of the vastness of consciousness that is just kind of seeking to realize itself. But when there's so many existing at the same time within an individual, there's sort of inevitably conflicts between them. And that's sort of the human predicament, maybe, is that we're subject to the various opinions of all of these habits and patterns at the same time. They all have their intelligence to them,
I
and they all
think
want
that
to
we
be
have
heard.
extreme levels of exposure
Mm-hmm.
to many things, to a lot, that lend to the molding and cultivation of our habitual pattern. And at the root of it, we have so much dexterity so that then we can really relate. So this is one way of looking at it. So you actually have the complete spectrum of possibility that exists, so that then you can find equal playing field for communication, ideally no matter who it is that you're communicating with. This is ideal.
Mm-hmm.
But within that, we are sophisticated enough, and we demonstrate this to ourselves all the time, that we know what it is that's best for you or for me as an individual. But that goes all the way through. It should maintain a thread from the furthest outer point, how you treat your physical body, all the way through into the emotions and thought. But you have that flexibility, and this is that moment and the sweetness that exists within that moment, no matter what it is that's occurring. And that's what meditation teaches. So you sit and you close your eyes, and you could have a little bit of discomfort within the body, but you find the goodness within that discomfort within the moment. So every moment as it goes by, but it's flexible to be itself. So now as you visit the spectrum of your mind that you have access to at that moment in time, you're creating the same agility no matter where you are. So that then when you appear in a setting like this, then you can actually meet and see the other side clearly, but knowing that this is the correct path for you. I mean, that's a recipe and a half for good communication. But now to bring yourself to that place is becoming responsible for yourself.
Maybe on that thread of emotions too. I find emotions pretty interesting because, that you can kind of broadly group them into positive ones and negative ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to stay with the positive ones and experience them, and you want to try and avoid the negative ones. But I feel like eventually what meditation is teaching is a distance from it all, whatever end of the spectrum that you're on. And that's kind of a part that I've been wondering about, is how you relate to emotions, and maintain a distance from them, so that the good ones or the bad ones, whatever the case may be, don't have the pull.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Pardon me.
Because emotions are kind of habitual too, right?
They are. And within that, I mean, and it is important to talk about within the context of meditation, because we are emotional beings. And they play a large role in all kinds of situations, like especially stress. And then stress is connected to all kinds of challenges within the body and within the mind. But within an emotion, it's not necessarily that we want to distance ourselves from them, but we want to create perspective. So we are ideally not identifying as being that, rather than we're observing them clearly and allowing them to be themselves.
Yeah,
Still feeling, usually more accurately.
Mm-hmm.
But with the emotion, we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Why is it happening? and have a little bit of self-analysis incorporated. Because the only reason why an emotion is happening is for a reason. So we have to really give room for the emotion to express itself and then accept the reason as to why it's happening. In that same way that we accept a particular state within our meditation as being, this is the depth that I've experienced, this is as deep as I've ever gone, and accepting that that's what it is. The same thing goes with the emotion, accepting the emotion for exactly what it is. And then allowing that communication to connect to the peace that is like that conscious speaking, that lets us know exactly why. And the stronger we can get with that communication, then the less fierce the emotion has to become, because now the emotion no longer feels the need to protect. Right? So this is why an emotion tends to get flared up. It's because it feels that it needs to protect somehow. So what in turn begins to happen is we make different choices for the sake of the health and well-being of the emotional experience. So then naturally it just goes to rest. So now you're resolving at a root level. Whereas the opposite would be positive thinking your way through life and kind of shying away from anything that would be categorized as negative, which is totally possible. But then the evolution of the individual might be stifled because now we're not running or we're not moving forward, we're moving laterally. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You're welcome. So, I guess, in short, of a very in-depth conversation, we want to feel some of that stronger, more challenging emotion and really get to the reason why. So there must be a purpose to it, or else we wouldn't be having it. And maybe a part of the challenge is that we don't have an infrastructure set up within society to support an analysis like that. So that's why it's good to go slow and do it through an avenue such as meditation or something else. Yes. How you doing?
I'm good. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the habitual thoughts and such, do you think that we as humans kind of have those habitual thoughts almost ingrained in us? But do you also think that maybe we as a soul and being aware can kind of be able to balance out, say, the negative ones and the positive ones, like referred to earlier? Kind of keep it all level. Even if you do have a negative one, you can understand and be aware of why, and kind of sorry.
That's fine, I'm following you.
If you have the negative one and you're aware of it, do you think that you're able to kind of balance it out with the positive one? Just using those as references, kind of examples, but is it almost possible to have balance and awareness through meditation and being able to kind of connect with that part of you that is aware of that, if that makes sense?
Yes.
I was thinking of the question the whole time.
Yeah,
and I
no,
kind
that
of
makes
lost
sense.
it.
And as human beings, yes, we do have patterned habitual thinking ingrained in us, and it happens in a few different ways. So one is through learning. So we learn from our surroundings, and also it's passed down. So genetics plays a role in it too, quite potentially. And on a societal level as well. So a society thinks a particular way, and it just kind of cultivates that over time, passed down from generation to generation to generation. So the individual actually does have the power and strength to begin to think differently, begin to unwind that. And this emerging science or emerging field within science, neuroplasticity, is really speaking to that strongly. So our ability to really shift the way that the brain is wired. So human evolution on an individual level, but also on a collective level, really is reliant on our ability to move forward, on our willingness to no longer accept that which is finished or no longer good for us. In terms of the balancing aspect, to balance one for the other is a potential way, but it becomes very tiring. So instead of balancing one thought for another thought, instead experiencing the space around a thought. And when we start to look at what exists between thought, we actually find the birthplace of all of our thinking. It comes from somewhere, it's manifesting. So if you watch your thoughts within your meditation, you can see how they start to build themselves. And that building out of nothing is actually where we want to be resting, in that place. And that's where we start to see the pristine equanimity within it all. So no matter what the thought is producing, whether it be a positive or a negative, we can actually watch it from a very safe place. And that's what we want to get to, is that emotion is being watched and thoughts are being watched from a very safe place. And then from that safety, we can develop confidence, skill, know-how as to how to act in accordance to that goodness which you feel, or that positivity, or that forward drive, focus, however you experience it. And within the action that is being produced, we start to dissolve the challenge within one's mind, and then we start to experience stronger equanimity. And it becomes like something which is building momentum on itself. So the more we feel that goodness, the stronger it gets. The stronger it gets, the more we actually start to see it all around us. No matter what is happening, nothing can change, but everything looks different. Like that. And yes, so meditation can be used for that. You're welcome. So then it starts, the next time you have this funny negative thought, like, that was an interesting one. And then can you laugh at it? Or next time someone insults you and you feel what you usually would do, but you decide to do it differently. Or the moment that the habit says, we should do this now, but you know for a fact that you want to do it differently, and then you just do it differently. I mean, for me, I don't mind if someone is, this might seem strong, but curled up in a ball, attempting not to eat the chocolate bar. And knowing that the apple is so good and just forcing yourself to eat the apple, and takes you maybe an hour to eat the apple, but you just sit there and do it. Because that's breaking down the barriers between you and the apple and closing the door between you and the chocolate, let's say. Yeah, it's like breaking up. So you're breaking up with all these habitual patterns that you have. So when you sit and you meditate, close your eyes and you just immediately start watching a story. Well, that's a habitual pattern. When We don't need to do that. We actually don't need that storyline in our meditation practice. We just need pristine quiet and a quality of space. So now we have to begin to orient ourselves in a specific way. And we just keep doing it again and again and again. And really, at the end of the day, and I'm not imposing this on you, but for the rest of your life, really examine it. And really, are you doing anything else? Is there any other reason why you're here other than mastering specific aspects within yourself to take into a focal point, which is directing you towards achieving that one thing? Is there anything else that you're doing? See. So before your final breath, I'm sure you will come up with that answer, quite literally. It's amazing because we do all these things, like even sitting in this room, coming to this meditation class and learning how to meditate. Yes, this is what's happening, but what's really happening? What's the purpose of it? Why are you doing it? What's the meaning behind all of that? So now if we make that our focus, then everything else becomes actually very productive, no matter what it is that's occurring. And it's a very, very interesting balancing act between developing faith in a potential that there is something more behind the curtain. So the possibilities of lifetimes upon lifetimes, or dimensions, or afterlife of some kind, and the possibility that there is nothing but your own well-being and happiness right now. Because you get pulled in two directions, I'm sure, all the time, and really balancing it out and seeing, well, what is true and what is not true, and is that relevant to me or not, and can I apply that or not? And the truth of it is that it doesn't matter if there's an afterlife or there's multiple dimensions and lifetimes, then this is a well worth development to connect to yourself in such a way that you start to no longer feed into that which is pulling you down a path you no longer want to be on. But even if there's none of that, this is still a very sound ingredient base for health, well-being, longevity, happiness, contentment. So it happens on both. So as you are developing the contemplation around those big questions, which will take you forever, you can gain the benefit of right now, right now, right now, right now, right now. Because this is what we like as human beings. We like that. You're sitting comfortable for a reason. You don't want to be uncomfortable. This is instantly, you're getting that reward again and again and again and again. So there must be a reason for that. So now if we just take that to a very intelligent place and start to cultivate that for the sake of your meditation practice, it becomes now incredibly effective. You have a rhythm of heart, and it pulses through your body. It's just there. But it's much more subtle than the comfort in your body. So if we want to create subtlety, if we want to get to know ourselves that much more, then let's listen to the rhythm of the heart and how it pulses through the body. Now immediately we have to drop in deeper in order to do that. You have fluid within your body, cellular fluid, cranial sacral movements within the fluid. It's there. But now can you feel it? And in order to connect to it, you have to become that much more subtle, which means you have to get to know yourself that much more, which means you must quieten down your mind. So now if we can apply again and again what we have, including our thoughts and including our emotions, to our self-development, then we are on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week learning tutorial. So now there's no wasted time in your development towards gaining that which you feel is the most important thing. I think it's worthwhile contemplating and maybe even putting into practice. Any questions so far?
Rameen.
Hello.
So you've done your share of meditating over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So have you figured out what your purpose in life is? And is it more than teaching and sharing?
For sure.
And if you've determined what that is it something that's changing, or is that the goal and you're sticking with that path? Or does it not change over time? Those are the thoughts I'm having. I'd like to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does do both. It is constantly transforming, and at the same time it always stays the same.
Can you share what you believe your purpose is then,
Sure.
more specifically?
Sure. On the most simplest of levels, the only reason why I'm here is for the sake of liberation. That's the only reason. But what that means is so many things. So I must quite literally liberate myself from being uncomfortable in a posture into feeling comfortable. And as I feel more comfortable within a posture, that is the first hint towards deeper liberation. And then how does that apply to my mind, my thoughts, my emotions? And it is very simple, but at the same time, it's incredibly agile in and of itself. And then that manifests into everything that I do. So my purpose is this liberation. So I teach a yoga practice that liberates your stiff body. I teach a practice that liberates your congested lungs, your mind, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Hi, Rameen.
Hi.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're
I feel
very
like
welcome.
that was deeply personal, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It is very personal. It's something that I don't really talk about.
Yeah, completely understand. You said that you want to make sure that we understand what you're saying. So I'm going to say that I haven't really grasped it because I don't know. That's just where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to simplify it because just yesterday I was like, what is everything? Why is everything? But thankfully I'm in a place in my life where I have a lot of resources that, it's not taking me down a dangerous path. So is what you're saying that basically just keep on meditating and you'll figure it out?
Yeah, that's one aspect for sure.
Okay.
Just keep meditating. But what just keep meditating is just keep getting to know yourself. Because really that's what we're doing. You're getting to know yourself more and more every moment of every day. And the better acquainted we get to ourselves, the more we're able to listen and then have confidence in that which what we are saying. And then with that relationship, we start to make sense of the world around us. And not for even the sake of the big equation of I have all the answers, but for a smaller of that big equation, which is I have the answers for myself right now. And there's a huge amount of power that exists within being able to be okay with the explanations that you have available for yourself. And it comes through just simply sitting, closing your eyes. This is the best way that I know how to do it. Because now we have a sensory deprivation, and you're only now looking at the content that exists inside of you. And then once that filters out, now you're only looking at that which was the content, which is no longer there. So now what is that which generates the content? And as you look at it and you get to know it, you start to experience, you start to see that that which exists there exists everywhere. So with the eyes closed or the eyes open, you're actually the same level of engagement with your environment. Whether you are sitting in one spot or having meetings all day, you have the same potential to do the exact same work.
Cool.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So you're right, I'd say.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Someone that I was actually having a meeting with was asking me about how we run things here. And this is a very wonderful, strong yoga community. And he comes from very linear, mainstream corporate world. So he was really interested in what marketing techniques and how we run things. And I was kind of laughing because none of that really happens. It is mostly just sitting and closing the eyes. But it is possible any way that you feel that is the path, that is the way. And the world is starting to see that more and more. Like even in the business world, it's becoming increasingly more abstract and less structured. That structure still has a place, but there's more room for the abstract thinking, for out of box, for creativity, and now how that can be applied to this moment that's happening right now in whatever setting. So if we start to erase the box that says, I fit in here, then you also become a part of that eternal birthright that says actually you fit in everywhere. So it's that moment that teaches it all. It's quite literal, very focused, very, very, very strong. Any last questions?
I stay.
Hello, sir.
What a beautiful night tonight. Wow, wow. Every night, every Wednesday seems so spectacular. And they just are the best beginning of the week, honestly. They truly are. Yannette was thinking about, and I was also thinking what Kevin was saying, and I guess what I'm getting is that it's happening right now. I'm in a state of meditation.
You are.
And I'm witnessing self-interplay in this wonderful space that you speak of between me and you and others. And I'm just allowing the information to come through me as I speak, and I'm not filtering it. So now, sometimes I question whether it's my mind playing tricks that's within myself? Or am I actually just allowing things, that subtle, quiet little voice that says, not the next episode, sit and meditate, right? That little quiet voice.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this great space to do it in, and you have this lovely heart that opens to it, and you want to warm to it, and as you experience it, you become accountable to yourself. But as you keep using this thought of patterns we spoke of tonight,
Mm-hmm.
and habitual patterns, you start, as you said earlier, create new ones. And the new ones for me happen to be acts of loving kindness and
Mhm.
service to others,
Mm-hmm.
genuinely, without depth. Or, am I overwhelming you with this right now? Too much?
No.
Okay. Sorry. So what I'm thinking is, meditation is definitely the way to do it, for sure, because it does center us. There's no doubt. And it's how to get that neural plasticity you speak of all the time to transform those habitual patterns so that we become accountable,
Mhm.
as you spoke of earlier, and more responsible for our own well-being. And there's something so sweet, as you speak of, that when you sit, there is this really sweetness. And it's joy. And even when you're doing a posture, it could be very laborious, but yet very sweet. You know, whether it's sore or not, it really is quite beautiful. So this, to me, is the question.
Mm-hmm.
We can go through life owning other attachments, other patterns, and chasing after chocolate bars and so forth, or we can just go and have a real wonderful experience of something fresh and new and alive
Mhm.
and quiet and subtle.
Yeah.
So I
That's
just wanted to say thank you so much, Rameen. And like Annette said, it was very personal that you shared that.
Mhm.
And it's true that that would be the most beautiful purpose of life, liberation.
I
Truly.
think for me, this is it. This is what I've been doing.
Mm-hmm. And
If
you
I'm
s-
uncomfortable, I want to liberate that discomfort
Mhm.
and become comfortable.
and just your mere
This is
presence of
liberation.
serving us by sharing this.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry,
What was your question again?
I just want to express some stuff. My mind just wanted to say that.
Well, this is very good. So now on both ends, we're going to start a formal practice right away. But I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times in many different ways, but all of it is good. We just have to cultivate an ability to see the space that exists between it all. Because that which you are experiencing is already here. It's already happening as it's occurring. It's already happened. But now what are we going to do with that? And this is like a sixth sense. It's a sixth sense. So if you were to, let's say, no longer have your sight, you're in a perfect environment to develop a relationship with who you are. So think of it like that. When you close your eyes, then you are no longer needing to see. But you do not need to see in order to understand, in order to experience, in order to have spatial awareness and move through that space. So it's sometimes the fear of not knowing is actually what creates this holding pattern. But if we let go of that, so you don't need to see, it no longer needs to be that way. And you can still experience on a completely different level a deeper truth and meaning to the reasons why you are here, having the experience you're having right now in this moment in time. Please close your eyes. eyes closed, bring full deep breaths into the body. Feel that subtle sensation moving in and out. See if you can become aware of every single detail as it occurs. How it feels on the inside, but also how it feels on the surface level of your skin. And over time, we want to be able to feel everything. Now bring your gaze with the eyes closed right there in front of you, looking into that space. And again, now what does that feel like as you build your concentration? What does it feel inside? Does it feel outside in the space directly around you? And as you connect that to the surface level of your skin, and now softening the gaze, very slowly and gently allow the eyes to open. And as you allow them just to come to focus on their own, can you reflect on your meditation just for a moment? And within that reflection, identify how you did it. How did you do that? And maybe a little bit more guidance to that is, how did you achieve a quality of space that was uninterrupted by any other thought? And it happened. I know for a fact that it happened. But it may only have lasted for a split moment in time. But it definitely happened. But what we must identify is how you did that. Then we have to build on that. We have to build on your ability. So if we keep connecting to that little small piece as to how it will just simply grow. And then we want to be able to apply that to everything else which you do within your day. Seeing every moment in your day as a lead up to your meditation, but also seeing every moment of every day as an expression of your meditation. So it's being bookended. Ideally, you have a meditation in the morning and a meditation at night. So now you are moving from that meditation space through your day building, but now everything that you're building is applied to your evening meditation. and then again and again and again and again and again. Your meditation practice is directly connected to your physiology, like the anatomy of the body, your psychology. That is all being expressed through your nervous system. So it's all really connected to the most practical aspects of who you are. And then that is being applied to the great phenomenon, the phenomenon of how you are sitting up and conscious. But you have some real tangibles to work with, and that's what we want to grow, is the tangible aspect of your meditation practice. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste.